The coldest day I ever felt was negative 20, 22 Fahrenheit. But I know I heard it got to negative 40 over in Siberia. But in the summertime, it's hot. So you really have to be prepared for all weather.
If you're going to St. Petersburg or to the mission in the summer, don't get any winter clothes because you can get it there. It's better to buy your winter clothes there because like your jacket and your boots are especially made for Russia. One tip is to get fur-lined boots. Make sure that there's fur inside your boots because that will keep you warm. Another tip that I didn't realize until like halfway through a Russian winter was the more layers you put on, the colder you're going to get. Because there was one point in January where it was so cold that I couldn't feel my face and I couldn't feel my feet or my hands. And I was thinking, well, what can I do to stay warm? So I thought, oh, I'll just add more layers. But what that does is it constricts your blood flow. And so then you get colder a lot faster. So for example, I wore 2 pairs of wool tights and then a pair of smart wool socks and then a pair of like big wool socks and then my fur-lined boots. But because of that, it just like constricted the blood flow to my feet, and so that's why I couldn't feel my feet because they were so cold. So just be careful about how many layers you put on in the winter. Another thing I did was I would microwave my socks right before I went outside, and so they got warm really quickly, and so I could just stick them on and keep my feet semi-warm before we went outside in the winter. And expect to go through a couple pair of boots because I went through probably 3 pairs of boots in the winter because we walked so much. I wore down my boots. But some sisters, they didn't have to buy any new boots. It just kind of depends on where you go for a pair of boots. But yeah, Russia is very extreme in the weather. So the winter's freezing cold and the summer is super hot. So when you pack, you're gonna have to get both the winter stuff like sweaters and long skirts and thick tights, but then you're gonna have to get like flowy blouses and lighter things for the summer because it's very extreme. Or when you're walking, just be aware of where your bag is, and yeah, especially in crowded places, always keep it in front of you so you know what is going on. Always keep your pouch on you. Make sure your passport's with you. Make sure you have your updated paper that shows that you were able to preach in that city. I'm not really picky about shoes, but definitely get very comfortable shoes because you're going to be walking around a lot and you will be getting blisters. My mom, I don't know, she got these shoes at this very random store in Arkansas, but they had memory foam on the bottom and they were just so light and so comfy. I wore them throughout my whole mission. I actually wore them out so much that I duct taped them. I didn't want to get rid of them because they were so comfy.
As far as clothing, you wear what the Russians wear. I don't care if you're not cold. People will yell at you if you're not wearing a hat and scarf, if everyone else is wearing a hat and scarf. And they wear their winter clothes long into spring. It's not kind of like Utah where it's 40 degrees and people are running around in shorts and flip-flops. Like, they wear their coats until like summer. You know, you definitely need to wear what the Russians will wear and just kind of look around and see what people are wearing. And you do need to, at least in some aspect, adapt to that because people will comment and ask you if you're crazy because you're not wearing tights. Tights are a really big thing for sister missionaries. And if you decide to kind of rebel and be like, I'm not going to wear tights and boots, it's not cold enough for that, the Relief Society will get together and think that you don't have tights and boots, and will pull all their resources together to try and buy you some tights or boots. And usually they're not the kind that you would normally pick out for yourself either. So do yourself a favor and just humble yourself and wear what the people are wearing, because it really kind of creates problems. Like, I've tried to talk to people and they're so worried that I'm not wearing tights that they won't listen to what I have to say about the gospel or anything. I had a companion that, for the life of her, she hated wearing hats, and so she wouldn't wear a hat clear into November, and everyone's like, you need to put a hat on. I don't care if you're not cold, like, it's bad for you, you'll get sick. Like, Russians value health above everything else. A lot of times we'd ask people, like, what is most important to you in life? And they would say health. And their reasoning is that if you don't have health, you're not good to anyone else around you. Like, you can't help out in any way, and you're just a burden to others. You kind of do just want to fit in. I mean, you can wear brightly colored things. Russians are very, very fashionable. And that's fine. But as far as like dressing for the weather, you definitely need to wear what the Russians wear. Wear a jacket when it's raining outside. And even in like my first city that I served in, it was super humid. And there was typhoon season, so you'd get a lot of rainstorms, and then it'd come through really fast, and then it'd be really sunny, but it'd still just be so humid, like you could see the moisture in the air just like swirling around. And although it was really hot in summer, because it was raining, people would still be wearing jackets. And if I wasn't wearing a jacket, people would ask me, why aren't you wearing a jacket? I'd be like, well, it's not cold. And like, you're crazy, you need to wear a jacket. You've got to pick your battles. There are some cultural things that you'll really want to push against, but some of them you just have to submit to, like the clothes. There's a weird thing about saying that you like things. In America, sometimes we say like, oh, I like your bag, or like your shirt's really cute, but that's really weird to them. And if you say like, oh, I like that, they think that you want it. So like sometimes, especially at the beginning of your mission, you kind of keep with that. You don't really know what to say, so you just say like, oh, I like that thing on your wall, or like, that's really pretty. And they'll be like, oh, do you want it? And they will like take a rug off their wall and give it to you, or like they will try and give you anything that you compliment on. I mean, obviously it's not the same all the time, but just kind of like being aware that like if you compliment something, or if you say that you like something, they'll want to give it to you. Like a member's scarf or something, like, oh, your scarf is so pretty, that looks beautiful. And she'll be like, you know what, have it. And then just like put it on you. And you're like, no, I don't want it. She's like, no, it's my gift. It's my gift. You have to take it. And so like, you do have to be careful with saying that you like things, because Russians will try to give you whatever. It doesn't matter really how inconvenient it is, and like, obviously not in every situation, but a lot of times if it's like something small or like not of significant value, they will try to give it to you. Yeah.
I would say the main thing is buy a coat and boots there. Just their equipment, their snow gear is way better than here. A lot of sisters would get the little hand warmers and they'd put them in their coat and they'd use those, or in your boots. I would say really important is getting a good scarf, because I'd always wrap it up and kind of put it over my mouth and everything when I wasn't talking to people. But you have to have a good warm scarf. It's also a coat that has fur along the hood, because when it gets windy, the fur just saves you. Kind of blocks the wind from your face. So that was really necessary, I feel like. But I mean, the members, they'll help you out as you go to, they have little kind of stores along the street, and they can help you know what to buy, what's warm, what's good. So
you have to wear one of their coats. Don't bring your own coat. You have to wear one of theirs. So you just wear a heavy scarf, or a heavy sweater, a scarf, and then one of their heavy coats. Everybody wears different kinds of coats there. There's leather coats. There's just sheepskin coats. Of course, the traditional fur coat if you can afford it. And so just definitely a very heavy coat. And people would wear different kinds of shoes as well. You know, during the summer you wear summer shoes. During the fall and spring you wear boots that are a thinner leather. And then during the winter you wear your, you know, full-on boots with thick fur inside. And so it's just, people there are very prepared for the cold. And it's just better to follow their example as opposed to trying to do it your own way. I would wrap my mouth with a scarf a lot, and sometimes I'd breathe and it would just turn into ice. So I would just breathing through ice, and so I'd have a scarf over my mouth, but it wouldn't do any good because this scarf is full of ice anyway. So after a while I just quit wearing a scarf over my mouth because it just didn't work. But I would say that probably in St. Petersburg it was more of a mild, you know, well, as far as Russia goes, it was more mild. Once you get out to Siberia, it's just, I don't know, too cold. But it would regularly get down to -20, -30 degrees Celsius in St. Petersburg. More often during the winter was about -10, -15 is a more common temperature. Again, the actual city of St. Petersburg tended to be a little bit warmer than the smaller towns out in the country. And part of that is because of all the industrialism that's going on in St. Petersburg, where there's the whole metro system underneath the ground. And so it would snow, but for the most part the snow would just melt after, you know, a few hours or a couple of days, depending on the temperature. But when you get out into the smaller towns where there are missionaries, the snow would stay all winter. And so it's just kind of a different experience being in the city and being out of the city, even though it's just a couple hours difference. I also served in a small area called Kaliningrad, which is kind of this little area that's in the middle of, it's in Europe. It's not attached to Russia. So here's Russia, and then you cross Poland and Latvia, Lithuania, and then there's Kaliningrad. And so it's not really connected. And there is a lot warmer. I was there during the summer, and it would get pretty hot and humid. And so, you know, people always think of Russia as being cold all year round. But no, we would definitely work up a good sweat during the summer, you know, and then, of course, St. Petersburg in the winter was, you know, freezing cold.